KoitCast.
Hi Yvonne, and welcome to KoitCast.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Again, like most of my guests, I run on a fate basis where one person leads me to the next. You came highly recommended, so here we are having a conversation now. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. Let's start with who are you, where'd you come from, etc.
Okay. Well, I live in the United States, in the Southern California area. Grew up there and still live there. I have my practice there as well. I've been a certified hypnotherapist for the last 34 years, specializing in UFO abduction cases. Um, can't believe it's been that long, over 3 decades. But I have my practice here in the United States. I have an office where I see clients face to face, but since 2021, because we were all quarantined because of COVID, I started some Zoom sessions. Many people were requesting them, and I decided I'm going to try this. So I've been doing that since 2021. I have many clients now throughout the United States and around the world, other parts of the world. So it's incredible where we are now with technology. You know, when I started my practice, we were barely starting to email, and we did not have the internet the way it is now, of course. It was just starting. So it just seeing all of this progress is just unbelievable to me.
I imagine so. Does this mean, right, with the technological shift when COVID hit, does that mean you see most clients now live or on the internet?
You know, it's really funny. I have been seeing more clients on Zoom um, because there's unfortunately still not enough qualified therapists to work with people who have been abducted, who've had UFO contact. And again, in 2021, I began teaching workshops for therapists who are interested in doing this work and want to include abduction cases in their practice. Over the years, I've been approached many times when speaker at conferences. I was always approached by therapists. How do I do the work that you do? I'm very interested. Um, but it took where, we were quarantined, COVID, and I thought, oh gosh, okay, I have to start the Zoom sessions. And then I realized um, I should probably start teaching because I'm getting up there. My colleagues are Bud Hawkins, who is considered the pioneer of abduction research. Very fortunate. I worked with him. He was my mentor, so to speak, and that's how I learned to do the work with abductions. Dr. David Jacobs was another one. He's no longer working with abduction cases. John Mack, of course, has passed away, as well as Bud. And so I had this urgency. I started feeling that I've got to get people, other therapists trained. I'm doing another class in October. I try to do two in a year, and they've caught on. They're doing very well. So hopefully we will have more therapists, throughout the United States. I did have three therapists training last year that were in other countries. So I was very pleased about that because this is a worldwide phenomenon.
I think that's very important what you do anyway, in that you've recognized, right, it's time now for me to pass on. We can't afford to lose knowledge or skills. So it's
Yes.
important for the student to become a master and then for that master to take students. That, we've got to keep that circle going, and so well played to you for doing that. Can you tell us your journey to becoming a hypnotherapist and then what led you to found CERO or CERO, however you pronounce that?
Yes. I after thinking about this for over 3 decades, I feel now um, it didn't occur to me back, 30 years ago, but I I was placed on this path really because it wasn't really anything that I planned. My life was so different over 3 decades ago. But my mother, unbelievable, she was very much into the metaphysical. She was very psychic. And she asked me to go to a conference. They used to have what they were called whole life expos all over the United States. I don't know if they caught on in other countries, but there was one that was being held very close to our home. So she asked me to go with her. This was in the late 80s. Bud Hopkins was speaking there. And so we went to his workshop, and I was just riveted about what he was talking about. He was showing slides of different drawings of the beings that his clients did, um, showing the different types of beings and describing that they were being taken since childhood. So I talked to him afterwards, and I'd been interested in hypnotherapy. I thought it's a very effective modality to work on different therapies. Self-esteem and the typical quit smoking, lose weight and those sort of things. But it was always important to me because you could use it for post-traumatic stress disorder, which is this is what I'm working with. This is what I specialize in. My uncle at the time, before I even started college for hypnotherapy, he was dying of cancer, only 40 years old. He was mainly like my big brother, really. And I wish I had had the training when he was going through all of that. At the time I was with him, I would visit him in the hospital every day towards the end of his life. And I thought, well, I really could have helped him cross over. And that's what really inspired me to start looking up hypnotherapy colleges. Very few at the time, but luckily there was one that was less than an hour away from my home. And I started taking the courses, became certified, worked there in the clinic with cancer patients. But then when I started my own practice, I also began attending conferences, UFO conferences, because I was very interested in that after seeing Bud Hopkins, his lecture. And I began meeting people there and saying, oh, I just became a certified hypnotherapist. And I began receiving referrals. And I thought, oh, that'll be interesting because I was really mainly wanting to specialize in helping people with cancer. But it just it turned the other way where I started seeing more clients, excuse me, that thought something may have happened to them. And so now, my practice consists of all UFO abduction cases, which I work with post traumatic stress disorder because anytime we go through a trauma, our subconscious job is to protect us. So it'll block all of the experience or part of it. And then little bits and pieces of memory will start percolating up. Oh, excuse me. And that's what gives a person, pause, thinking, well, was that bright light in the sky? Maybe it was something else. Or, of course, the very obvious one was they're missing maybe an hour or more of time in their lives, which is very disturbing to them. So I've been working with this now for 34 years. I mean, usually this abduction experience will begin in early childhood and will follow the person throughout their lives. It may lay dormant for a while, maybe a year or more, where nothing happens. but then something down the line will happen again. So it doesn't just stop. It really is a lifelong experience.
I have a question to ask you, and it's going to sound awful, but I want you to understand my intention is just logical
Sure.
and thinking along fate lines. Um, your relative that died, was it, do you say it was your uncle?
Yes.
Yes, right. So your uncle had cancer. Was that for you, i.e., it was an inspiration key for you that he had the cancer, which led you into the field, which then took you into a bigger work? Or was it a side effect, you going into that work of his cancer?
It was um, when he was, towards the end of his life, when he was in the hospital. Um, that's when I felt inspired to work if I became a hypnotherapist to help people cross over or help them through their treatments, which are very, very difficult. But then at the same time, I had watched Bud's workshop and listened to the cases that he worked with and that he used hypnosis. So it was, it was that inspired me as well. But I thought, well, when I graduate, I'm going to specialize in cancer patients because I did work with them in the clinic when I was accumulating my hours. But then I started meeting people, in the UFO field, and it just turned the other way.
Hmm.
And that's why I feel that I was placed in this path to do this work because it was, I happened to have a college of hypnotherapy where I could drive very close to my home. It wasn't in another state. I was very fortunate. It was just everything just seemed to fall into place.
Exactly,
So
and I've been thinking along this line for a long time. I call it the nudge theory or whatever, where something seems to happen to someone to push them in a direction, which actually ultimately years later they say, "I found home doing this work." All right, yeah, this is my meaning.
right.
That's a common theme. So then, which makes you think, if X hadn't have happened, so if your uncle hadn't have had the cancer at that point, yeah, you might not have been inspired enough to tick into that avenue.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say now, but I may have gone anyway because I was so um first of all when Bud was speaking about his cases and showing all the slides and um I became so intrigued about it and thinking, oh my gosh, these people are really going through this that it that may have inspired me enough
Mm,
to
okay.
I don't do well in regular school, traditional school, with learning and taking tests and all that. But when I'm interested in something in a subject, like I was with this, I was amazed at myself. I aced all my tests and we did all the practicing and we did, we learned a lot about psychology. It was just very interesting. And so I usually don't, um, what's that word? Become obsessed with anything because I usually become bored first. But it seemed like with this subject, I became obsessed. It was like I had to learn more, learn more, learn more. And that's why I think, and I didn't realize it back then, and I didn't want to say anything after, a few years as I was working, because it sounded so woo-woo. You're like, oh, I was placed on this path. But I really feel that that's what happened to me. Um, I really feel now with all the work that I've done and people that I've met, and that even the alien beings may sound really strange to your audience, but I feel they put me in this path that this is the work I was supposed to do because people need help. So
Do you think that retrospectively about your past, or did you think it at the time that, oh, I'm being pushed and I'm going onto the right path now, or was it only looking back?
yeah, no, I didn't think about it. No, not right away. I think the thought occurred to me probably within the last 10 years or so. maybe a little bit longer, but no, not at the time. I was just so interested in what I was learning. And then, of course, when I became a certified hypnotherapist and I opened my practice, I will never forget my first client. I was so nervous, thinking, "Oh my gosh, am I going to be able to help them?" Um, and it just now it's second nature to me.
How long
And
did that imposter syndrome last for? Because that's what it pretty much is, isn't it?
what is it? The what syndrome?
Imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're not worthy of
Oh yeah.
whatever it is at the start. I mean,
Well, for a while because I was so new, but and I didn't realize it at the time, but I worked and was able to meet with the A-listers. I mean, I traveled with them. We all lectured together. Bud Hawkins, Dr. David Jacobs, Dr. John Mack. I was the only woman, and we were traveling throughout the United States. We were mainly on the speaker list together. So afterwards, and, the, and everybody will relate to this who've gone to conferences over the years. At the end of the day, you go to dinner, you have drinks, and that's when you really network, really talk about cases and what you're doing. And I was so fortunate because I would have questions. Have any of you had this such and such and this such and such? Could you think, oh my God, this is crazy? Things I'm hearing sounds crazy. And oh yeah, I have several cases of that. It was one of them I'll never forget when one of my clients, and he was in the medical field and just very credible. And while he was in hypnosis, he said there were two beings that were taller than the little gray beings that a lot of people are familiar with, but they had collars, high collars like a Dracula collar, and capes. And I thought, oh my God, this is just crazy. I said, what am I doing? What am I getting myself into? So we went to a conference, I forget where, maybe it was at the Florida one. And I remember sitting having drinks and I asked if any of you had descriptions of the taller, they look like the small grays, but they're taller and they're wearing capes, I said, my client described Dracula collar. And I remember John Mack, oh yeah, I have, people describe it all. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am on the right track because if I were getting descriptions,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. And they had no clue. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, Yvonne. Believe me, I don't think I would be doing this. But it's just the comparing notes. I think even Bud Hopkins would he'd bring his album of drawings, and he showed me, I'm sure it was Bud, I don't think the others had an album, but he showed me a drawing of of the alien of the capes. And that's when I knew. I said, okay, I'm on the right track. These people are not crazy because when you hear these things early on in your career, this is like no other work. I mean, it's like no other work. And but I was taught by the best, so I feel very very fortunate. This was in the early '90s. I graduated in 1991, and I started doing conferences. I think in '92, '93. Or maybe it was like '93, '94, but early '90s where I was able to travel with the A-listers. So yeah, if I didn't hear constantly these similarities in cases and people that still don't know each other, people that I have a couple clients in Germany and other countries, and they're describing the same thing as my clients here in the United States,
Well,
and
that whole validation thing is highly important, isn't it? For them and for you,
they
massively
don't
so.
know they still don't know each other. People,
Mm.
they because the skeptics will go, oh, they sat down and they're comparing notes and they're talking. Well, no, because they don't know each other, and they're describing experiences since early childhood. So that's what's kept me in this field because then I knew something is happening.
Well, it would keep me there as well because the very fact that it's a mystery or a big mystery, there's more
Yeah,
questions and you're skinning the onion and again and again and again and again. So you want to stay in the game, so to speak. Um,
right.
when you heard your first patient mention the alien abductions to you directly, now obviously you've already heard of this because you were at the Bud Hopkins lectures, etc. What was your reaction then? Because it was that like, whoa, it is real.
It was, and you think about, he was a engineer at the time, went to the university, and it just the caliber of people that were coming to me were, people that probably your neighbors or your coworkers, or it just they have careers, they're raising families. So when I started hearing the similarities and having them describe what's there in front of them very, very carefully, not to lead anybody into anything. It's not until they'll go, I see, I can't see his face, but I feel like it's a he. They always tell me it's a feeling because they don't look really different from each other. I'll try to have them describe. Okay, once they say that to me, when they say they see a being or they see somebody, I go, can you describe that being to me? I don't say, do you see a being in front of you? In other words. So you have to pose the questions very carefully, and that's what I teach in all my workshops.
Yeah. What percentage of patients would you say that you obviously dealt with PTSD was probably as a result of the alien abduction? So initially, I presume you went into this to look at PTSD as a whole, so for a number of things. But
Yeah.
then, did it become predominantly alien?
It, I mean, but my practice now has been, you know, I would say 100%, 99.9%. Um, and yes, the people who come to me, of course, they live their lives. You have a lot of people that were in the military that caused PTSD, or people that were sexually abused as children, or physically abused. So they dealt with all of that part of PTSD over the years with traditional therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. But it's just like this one area that's still causing symptoms of PTSD. So over the years, I've received referrals from psychologists, psychiatrists saying, this my patient, they've been with their patients for a while. My patient mentioned that they think they saw a UFO with their family, and I think this might be, the work that you do, and they don't want anything to do with working with UFOs, many of them. Now, this was years ago. This is mostly, like say late 90s. Now, because I'm teaching these workshops, therapists over the years have been becoming interested in it. Um, but back then, they really didn't want to deal with anything about UFOs, and they weren't trained. They said, I'm not qualified to do this. So that part of their therapy, and that's where I feel fortunate as a hypnotherapist, because I'm usually the last person they come to. They've been to the doctors, a psychiatrist, they've been medicated, um, and then here I am. And if they're still seeing their doctors and still receiving prescriptions for whatever, I have them get a prescription for hypnotherapy. So I'm an adjunct to that doctor or that therapist. I don't just take over. But I've never had a therapist, a doctor refuse hypnotherapy because they know that it's very beneficial to their patients.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Um, do you see men or women predominantly, or is it an even split?
It's I've asked that quite a few times, and I feel it's 50-50. Yeah.
Cool, cool. And Here's the classic. Is there a common story?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when they describe early childhood, for instance, they'll remember something in their room, something coming in their room. They'll many times will share a bedroom with a sibling, and then the sibling will say, you know, did you see that? And they will discuss this throughout their childhood and growing up. Um, they'll they'll say they were compelled to go outside, and this is just, not in just childhood, but in adulthood too. Um, what's really was very stunning in the beginning when young children would find themselves outside of the house and very early in the morning. The parents couldn't find them, and then they see their child outside. How did they get out there? You know, the door wasn't open, and the child's there with just underwear or even a diaper. I mean, it's just, you know, you think, you know, did that child sleepwalk? And that's a possibility, but it's, you know, it's very puzzling as how did they get outside when I
Well,
first started.
especially if the door is locked, because what do they do?
Oh,
Go outside, then lock it again from the inside.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
Hmm.
it's so very, very puzzling. And then, you know, when I hear things like I was compelled, adults, you know, they're asleep, they wake up, suddenly wake up at say at midnight, 1 in the morning, and they say I was compelled to go drive out to the desert or go drive out somewhere where it's, you know, there's uh very, very it's not populated, you know, it's just very few people. From here, when we live in Southern California, we can get to the desert and within an hour or so. We can get to, from where I am, we can get to the beach in an hour or so. So when people say I was compelled to go, and I, then when people tell me, I just know that they were given a message to go to that particular area because something was going to happen. The descriptions when people describe taken from their homes, they see a blue white light coming into their windows. Many of them are awake watching TV or reading, and they begin to feel paralyzed. All of a sudden, they can't move except for their eyes, and then they sense that they're not alone. They sense that something is there. Sometimes they will consciously see something. Other times there's a blackout period. And people will mainly remember the beginning of an abduction or the end of an abduction. So that whole middle area is where they're haunted by, you know, did something happen? You know, why was I really paralyzed? Why couldn't I move? That sort of thing. And another part of this is when people are driving. They're driving home from, say, they're driving home from the airport. They know it's going to take 2 hours to get home because they've done it many times. So you will see maybe a strange light in the sky, or and I'll call this a screen memory. Well, they say, "Oh, ahead of me on the highway, I saw blinking lights, and I thought, oh no, there's an accident." You know, the first responders are there. They see the first responders around the ambulance, and they're approaching, and they go through there, and then they don't remember anything after that, anything happening. They get home, and they're 4 hours late than they should have been, and they don't remember anything. And then many times it doesn't occur to them, you know, why was I so late? It occurs to them sometimes days, weeks later, sometimes years later.
It's weird,
I,
that phenomenon, isn't it?
it's very weird and very
Strange.
disturbing. I mean, can you imagine? This has not happened to me, but not knowing, like you get home, you're supposed to be there, say arrive by 6 o'clock in time for dinner, and you get there at 8 or 10 p.m. and your family's like, where have you been? And many times this happened before we had cell phones. So the parents or the the family, they were, excuse me, I talk so much.
That's okay.
The families were in a panic because like where are they? They think they got in an accident or whatever. Now with cell phones, it's a little bit easier, but back then, there was no way of communication. So
It's
that's
weird, isn't it weird, that whole thing, right, where there's missing time or something, and then the client, from your perspective, seems blasé about it, or forgets, or doesn't really question it. Does that suggest that there's been some sort of like suggestion put into their mind to say don't question?
oh yeah, definitely. They've been programmed. I'm convinced of it after doing so many of these cases. I'm convinced that they're programmed to forget. I have so many cases of, many times they're not driving alone. They're with another family member or a friend. And then years later, it's amazing. 5, 10 years later, they'll go, "Do you remember when we were driving home and we saw that accident?" And the other person, "Well, yeah, I remember." And it occurs to them, we should have been home hours before. Another part of this is that many times the other person in the car, they don't want to talk about it. It's like, I don't want to talk about this. Sometimes friendships are broken up because of it, because they feel, I think, and I tell the person who comes to me, I'm convinced that if your friend or your family member, if you discuss it, it becomes real, and they're just trying to push it away.
Mm.
And it's really sad because the one person really wants to know what happened, and they were hopefully that their witness will come along as well and do some hypnosis. And but I've had so many people, just angry, like, I don't want to talk about this. And that anger that comes out, it's really fear,
Yeah, it's a
you know.
defense mechanism to push it back further, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that, of
Yeah.
course.
The whole, you mentioned right at the beginning of this that PTSD is essentially a personal block that you
Mhm.
put on your own mind to repress things to keep you protected, right? If the aliens are suggesting to forget, there's two levels of blocks there, really, then, isn't there? Both a personal one
Well,
and the
yeah,
suggested one.
it's our subconscious that blocks us. Whether we, I've had people had terrible car accidents. They're afraid to, and they don't remember all of it, and they're afraid to get back in the car. Or people in the military, of course, the subconscious protects them. They'll remember things later. But so the subconscious is blocking some of it or all of it. And then, yes, and then there's the suggestion by, or the programming by the alien beings. Now, eventually, as I mentioned before, memories will start percolating up. So people who want to push this on the back burner, it does not stay there forever. Things will come up, something will happen, it'll trigger a memory, and then all of a sudden the person, it causes fear, apprehension, that hypervigilant. Um, when people have children, this happened, like, say, many years before they got married and had children. When their children begin to say something strange, that's when they'll come to me and say, "I've got to deal with this. How am I going to help my child?" And they're panicked because they are sensing that something is happening. What their child is saying is something that they themselves had said or felt or described. So then they're faced with, okay, I got to deal with this.
Mm.
So
Which neatly brings us into the whole stolen eggs sperm scenario. like familial lines or whatever. What do you think's happening there? And obviously, presumably, you've heard that a lot.
Definitely, they are. I mean, still feel that the hybridization program, that creating a human alien hybrid race is central to what they're doing now. What's happening? Where are these hybrids going? Years ago at the time, like people have seen them up in the ships. They're very, strange looking. They have the big eyes, they have the wispy hair. If they were to come down back then, we would have noticed them. The big eyes, especially over the years, the hybrids have been perfected. So I know now that they are walking among us.
Is
People
it a
have
case of like
felt
hybrids being hybridized? So it's like soften, you know what I
that
mean? Softening the
they're
look.
being, yeah, they're being perfected where you could walk by them. Like say in a conference, a UFO conference, I know they've been there. You could walk by them and not, they look human. It's only when people engage them in conversation, they said there's something different about them. Their eyes, I mean, even though their eyes look like ours, they could almost see right through you. They could read your mind. They're just something very different. And I know that people have felt they encountered them in the UFO conferences. Why wouldn't they be there? They want to see what information we have and so forth. Um, it sounds crazy, and I feel like if I said it years ago, it would sound crazy. But it's now, where too many people are telling me they've had these strange interactions with, and they think I think that was a hybrid. Um, but I don't. I know the scenario's been out there where the hybrids, they're creating this race because they're going to come down and they're going to take over, like invasion of the body snatchers. I've never felt that way at all. Um, they're down here for a reason. They might be other up in other planets waiting or whatever they're doing up there. Um, but the alien beings, they still need us humans for our material, for our DNA, our blood, our sperm, our ova. Um, Now, I don't have any cases right now that a hybrid has produced, a child. But how do we know? I mean, we have to compare the blood. Is there a different blood type? And that's really important is trying to see how different they are, doing tests, say DNA tests. But of course, all these tests, whatever they are, they require money. And I can't just send somebody, okay, go get a test and we'll analyze it and send it to a lab. I need benefactors that are willing to put down the money and say, okay, let's do this research. Anybody out there in the UK or anywhere else, it would be a very, very interesting study.
I'm sure
People
Elon Musk will be watching this, so
say, some people think he's a hybrid.
yeah,
But
there is an element of that, but I like it. From all your research, if you had to encapsulate everything, I'm sure you've been asked this many, many times. What is their agenda? Why are they interacting? Is it nefarious, etc.?
oh gosh, that's the $1 million question, Coit. I mean,
Yep.
if I knew that, I probably could make a lot of money.
Yeah, but you
That
probably don't
answer.
know it for sure, but you might have an
Yeah.
inkling.
Well, right now, and it's been for years, the reason is they need us, they need our material, they need our emotions because they don't really have that, our human emotion, to create what they're creating, the hybrid race. Now, I feel now we're in a different phase now that they are going to be starting to show themselves more. They do want to interact with us more. They are they will not go to the government, any government. They will not go to mainstream media because they're tired of the lies and the cover up and so forth. I was told this in my 34 years. I never thought I would ever say anything like this. But last year I began getting messages from them. And I spoke at Contact in the Desert last year and this year, but last year was the first time I stepped out of my comfort zone because I was supposed to relay these messages to people. They want people to know. And I figured, I'm 72 years old. When you get that old, Koit, you don't give a damn what people say
No,
about you.
you
They
don't. You
figured,
don't
okay,
care.
if they think Yvonne finally lost it, fine.
We
But
all know you lost it years ago, so don't worry.
I know. But I thought, I'm supposed to do this. And I I hit a chord with a lot of audience members that felt they were getting the same message. And my CERO, Close Encounter Resource Organization support group, it was the synchronicity last year that when I was getting the messages, certain ones were getting messages at the same time. So if it were just me, I would have been real skeptical and went, no, but it was the synchronicity with other people that's when I went, okay, I'm supposed to do this. And then I was a speaker there again this year in June, and I had more messages. And they said they were going to be showing themselves more. And do you remember that? I don't know if I think it did affect Europe when November, December of last year, when the drones
Drones, yeah.
were showing, it was like all over the place. I asked them because they always ask me, "Do you have any questions?" I before my session ended, and I asked them, "Was that you doing that?" And they said it was. It was a test, and they're going to be doing it more. And I said, "Please do it more, please." So it sounds
I have a question. Sorry. Um,
yes, okay.
when you say you're getting these messages, are you getting these messages through clients as part of your hypnotherapy sessions? I.e., they're somehow coming in and talking to you directly. Is that what's happening?
What happened was last year in May for the first time. I have a client in Germany. We were doing a session. She had a lot of sessions with me. Um, in this session, I'm taking notes and I'm doing my regular work with the session. She stopped and she said, "There are beings here that want to talk to you," just like that. And I almost fell off my chair because
Mm.
in 3 decades, that's never happened. And I said, "Yes, okay, I'd like to talk to you." And that's when the messages came through. Eventually, after receiving, I think it was this year when I said, "Will I begin direct communication with you, or do I still need a medium?" And they said at this time that I still need a medium for communication. We have to, as a race, we have to raise our vibration to where they're going to come in and communicate, and that's what they want to do. That we have to raise our vibration as a human race, which makes total sense to me. But look where we are now. Look at the mess that our world is in right now. I mean, we fight each other. We can't even get along with each other. So that's one of the messages, is that we have to start meditating more, raising our vibration, because they do want people to know that they're there, that they want to communicate, they want to come in. Um, they still can't interfere with us. I wish they would, um, but they're observing everything that's happening. Now, having said that, I'm sure you read about in the 60s, there were several military installations where the ICBMs were shut off.
And some turned on in Russia. Yeah.
And exactly, and then turn back on. I know um, Captain Robert Solis very well, who was there in Maelstrom Air Force Base. He wrote a book about it, um, books about it. Now, if that wasn't a message to us that they have the capability of turning these things off, they don't agree with us having nuclear weapons. But have we listened? No. Um, so they're going to start showing themselves more, just like they did them last year, and I'm looking forward to it. I told them, please continue doing it. And then we just had a congressional hearing. I don't know if they aired it in the UK.
I've been watching some of it on YouTube and stuff.
Oh, that's right. Okay. More whistleblowers coming forward. And you know how that happens. A couple of whistleblowers come forward and then others start coming forward because it's okay. They're talking, and
Hmm.
it happens with sexual abuse cases. Some women come forward. It happened with the Bill Cosby case. All of a
Hmm.
sudden there were 50 women that were coming forward. So that's happening now with the UFO phenomena, which you have to really give these whistleblowers a lot of credit, for doing what they're doing.
Agreed. And I just think ultimately about time. Because I'm nearly 51. I've been in this a while and I've been wanting stuff to get out finally for a long time. And obviously you a long time before me. So it thinks, come on. I don't want to die before it comes out properly. I want to see or hear one from one on TV,
Exactly.
not close.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, and I'm still in disbelief in a way that all of a sudden last year these messages came through. I mean, she stopped in the middle of her session. She was in regression, and she said there were beings that want to talk to me. So, I mean, can you imagine I've done hundreds of regressions, hours of regressions. That's the first time that ever happened. But we're in a crucial time now, where, disclosure, we're always talking about it.
Are these
But
messages only coming via that one client, or have you had it happen to other people as well?
um, what happened to this one client, and she's the one that how I communicate with them. But I was doing a podcast out of Denmark. I had the host, and then I had another client from Germany, different client. She was going to be her translator, the translator. So the Alexandria was interviewing me, and then halfway in it, she stopped and she said, "We can't do this right now. There's somebody here who wants to talk to you." And so I had one of my CERO members do just a clip for me about the message, and I showed that to my audience this year. Now, whether this happens with other people, maybe eventually, because they want people. In fact, they've asked me to include people in my clientele, in my work, who want communication with them. If they want to be mediums, or the ones that are mediums, receive their communication. So they would be working with me, say that I have them in hypnosis, and they begin receiving messages. This is what they asked me to do. So I'm taking steps now to put this on my website. I'm trying to word it, this is I don't have any
Yeah, that's a
experience.
hard ask, isn't it? Do you want to
Yeah.
be a medium for, it's a difficult
It
one.
sounds, but this is what they've asked me to do. They always thank me for the work that I'm doing and for helping them. Um,
I,
so
I have this extra question here, right? And it's going to sound
yeah,
again awful, but
yeah,
because a force from somewhere, an intelligence consciousness from somewhere has said, can you help us with this? And you're doing that work and other people are doing the work. Does it mean that that's positive, because it could be nefarious. They're just saying, "Oh, can you build this machine for us?" And then all of a
Right,
sudden we explode as a planet.
right,
Do you
right.
understand where I'm going with that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, it could be nefarious. I mean, over the years, some of them have been um, deceitful. They'll. An example is to get people to feel comfortable. We've discussed this in my group meetings. Like, say they come to you, Koit. They come into your house, and then you're standing there, and all of a sudden you see a relative that's crossed over, and then you're going, like, say grandfather, for instance. Oh my God, it's my grandfather, and you start feeling very comfortable, and then you go with them. You're on the ship, and then all of a sudden they morph into what they really are, and that's really upsetting to people, thinking that they saw their dead relative. And I can imagine my mom passed, she crossed over, and seeing her, you think, oh my God. And so that's very deceitful. Now, with the communication I've had with them, I do not feel at all that it's nefarious.
Okay.
I really feel that they want communication with us. They want us to know um, what they're doing, why they want to come in. They do want to help us. So that's how I feel. I mean, I go according. I tell people, go according to your gut feeling. When I've met people and I'm not, it's like there's something that bothers me. If I had that feeling, I wouldn't be in communication with them. But I have not had a feeling like that. So to the audience, you can contact me if you are a medium and you feel you want to start communication with them. Please contact me. I do sessions on Zoom, um, or you could email me. I have to start that phase of my work, Coit.
Sure. Well, I'll put a link in the description to your site where people can get hold of you should they wish to for this work. You mentioned earlier that they don't have emotions and they're intrigued by our emotions, which opens up this question. I've heard from many, many people before about the whole reincarnation topic and that the souls go here, there, and everywhere. Do the emotions lie in the soul or the body? Because from what that says, i.e., they don't and we do, that suggests that the body has emotions rather than the soul. Or they have no soul. Oh,
The
sorry, you're on
soul.
mute. Go on.
I'm sorry.
Say that again. Sorry, I lost the first part of that.
Oh, I'm not sure at this point about whether they have souls or not. I know we do. Well, with my Catholic upbringing, that's how I was taught. Um, they probably do have souls, but it's the reason I say they don't have emotion. Over the many years, people have been brought up to the ship. They've been shown their hybrid babies, and several of the beings will stand around and study the person's, how are they reacting to this baby, how are they connecting to this baby. That's like they don't quite know how to do this, and they need the human side of us. They need human beings to come up and take care of the babies, whether they're men or women. Both of them are taken up there. They're shown their babies, and oh gosh, many of them just cry during the session because they're not allowed to bring those babies back to Earth because they wouldn't survive. Now, they may survive now, but they're never brought to Earth as babies. It's always when they're perfected and they're older. Now, that's our human emotion. You know, Maybe that comes from the body and the soul, from us. So all I know, it's just very, those sessions are always very emotional.
Yeah, I imagine they are. Yvonne, I have a shed load more questions for you, but I am conscious we've got about 5 minutes left. Unless you, yeah, because I think you have to shoot off. So we're going to quickly enter the Koit zone and then we'll wrap up. Koit zone. So let's start with what's the best flavor to you?
The blessed flavor of ice cream or,
No, best flavor. So that could be anything. Doesn't have to be ice cream.
oh, okay, best flavor, coffee
Really? Wow.
or vanilla. I mean, I have a couple of them.
Okay.
But I love coffee, even coffee ice cream. So I could say coffee.
I'll write it down and then I'm going to put a big negative against that. You get no points for that because coffee's gross. No, I'm joking. What's the worst place you've been on holiday?
Jamaica.
You have to tell me why now.
It's oh gosh, I don't want to insult anybody, but it was
Feel
it was
free. Just do it.
it was just very uncomfortable for me going into town and people asking for money and
Oh,
this
I see.
lady
Yeah.
braided my hair and wanted money, and it was very just uncomfortable being approached that way. Um, we stayed in a villa, which was really nice and it was private, but then you want to go into town and have dinner or whatever. It was more like a third world country, and I don't like to see, when you're on vacation on holiday, to see, all of that, the poverty is it was sad, very
Mm.
difficult. So that was my one and only trip, and I hope I didn't insult anybody.
No, you didn't. You're being truthful to yourself, so thank you for that. Is there an actor or actress that you've watched all of their films they've ever made just because they're in it?
Hmm, not really. You know what? I get bored. I hate to say this. I get bored with movies. I watch documentaries.
No, good.
So
It's learning. It's better.
maybe that makes me a boring person. But I don't, to me, actors and actresses, I've had a lot of interaction with them living here in Southern California. They're just normal people to
Hmm.
me. Um, and so, but me, I like when I'm watching stuff, I'm not going to spend an hour or two. I'm going to learn. So I'm watching documentaries.
Good on you. That's good for you. Have you bought something from an advert on Facebook or anything that looks good, but when you get it, it's crap?
No, no,
Good. That means you're not a sucker. Well played, you.
no.
What is the worst injury you've sustained?
Oh, injury.
Hmm.
Oh, just I just returned from a contact in the desert in June. 2 days later, I somehow fell going up my two steps and threw out my sciatica, and I couldn't walk.
Oh,
Yeah, it happens when I do things that I'm moving fast, moving fast. I wasn't paying attention. I wanted to get stuff done, and I couldn't walk for. I had to drag my right leg, and I thought I broke it, but I didn't. I went to the doctor and all. Thankfully, I didn't have to have any surgery, but it. Oh my God, don't throw out your sciatica. Maybe because I'm getting older, but it was just, I was screaming. My sister had to come over. My son came over, but that was just very recent. That was in June. So,
well, I know the pain of it because I've had something very similar with the shoulder recently.
oh, oh,
Agony, agony.
it
Um,
is.
do you have a favorite coin?
Coin,
Yeah.
maybe a quarter.
Okay, let's go with a quarter. Speaking of, what is the most money you've ever found in one go?
Did I ever find?
You ever found, yeah.
Oh, I think one time I picked up $20 from the street.
Not out of
I'm
someone's handbag.
no, I'm still playing the lotto. I'm still doing scratchers, but yeah.
Good on you. Um, do you have any stories relating to your teeth?
To my teeth,
Yeah.
I had a bridge done many years ago, but that's
And
about it.
what's a bridge? I don't know what that is.
They to straighten your teeth out, they put like I guess they replace one or two teeth to straighten them out. Instead of me wearing braces, they put like fake teeth, I guess.
Oh, weird. Cool,
Yeah.
but it worked, clearly. Nice one. Right, last question in the Koit zone. You're suddenly immortal. What are you doing?
I'm certainly immortal in what?
Yeah, so you're suddenly immortal. You become immortal overnight. What are you going to do?
What am I going to do? I'm going to continue my work. I'm going to continue until these beings come here and I have a face-to-face meeting with them, which
That's
I'm
it.
really looking forward to that.
So you want to beat the whole aging out thing, which I don't blame you.
Well, I mean, I always say I'm 72, can't hide your age. I can't do anything about it, but I'm going to, do my work as long as I can still do it. And I always pray, please keep me healthy. Please keep my energy level up because I have so much work to do. And like you, I want to live until things are happening. I want to see it for
Yeah.
myself.
Damn
So
straight. I think loads of us want to see that. So, aliens, hurry up, do it now.
it's now. I keep telling them,
Got to
yes.
be doing it on our time frame, not yours.
Right.
Right. So, the last question of the interview, is there a project that you're currently working on?
Yes, we're getting the CERO book out. It's about the support group. We had about a dozen support group members writing. I'm getting in fact, I talked to my publisher. We're getting endorsements done, and it will be out by the end of the year. And it'll be posted on my website, and I can always send you an email about
Yeah, sure.
announcement. I'm also been working the last 3 years on the CERO documentary. Um, and that's all about very personal about the certain CERO members that agreed to go on camera, talk about how their experiences have impacted them and their families. And we've been working really hard on it. So 3 years, we've been working on it. So that should be coming up. We will have a premiere probably, I was hoping this year, but probably in spring of next year. But I will
Cool.
keep you posted on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. Please do. I'd love to see that. Yvonne, thank you ever so much for coming on today. Again, to everyone watching this, check out the links in the description where you'll find, you know, Yvonne's site, etc. Go and get involved.
Yes,
Yvonne needs
please.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Koit. This has been a pleasure.
Next time, I will hopefully have you on again. Please, please,
Thank you
please
so
come back. I
much.
said that wrong, but you know what I mean.
I, will. I sure will. Thank you.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.